The Tampa Bay Lightning are mired in a 4-game losing streak, unfamiliar territory for the Bolts. Adam Denker is here to talk about what's going on in Tampa, even with Andrei Vasilevskiy back in the lineup. All that and more next on the Locked On NHL Podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Lightning, Adam Denker. And Adam, sorry to have you on now when this team is struggling the way they are. When was the last time the Lightning had a 4-game losing streak?
Not too long ago. I mean, we here on Locked On Lightning try to have a little bit of a short memory when it comes to such things. So, it kind of seems like everything is exponentially worse with the Lightning every time they lose a game, because when they lose, Gil, they lose in spectacular fashion, as was seen today against Dallas. And it's very frustrating, and we'll get into it, I'm sure. But this team has just been very inconsistent, and I think that's the only thing we could say is that they are consistent at being inconsistent, and it was prevalent in today's blowout loss on the road.
One of the things that has been plaguing them is slow starts. You mentioned that when we were speaking before we started recording. Why do you think this team is having trouble being ready for the opening faceoff?
I just think it comes back to being prepared. And a lot of Lightning fans at the beginning of the season and even over the last year, have kind of looked at the players and saying, you guys got to get out to an early start. They got to be ready. They got to make the right decisions right off the bat and, not wake up in spectacular fashion in the second period. But now it seems as though over the past week that now the fan base, including yours truly, is starting to look now at the coaching staff. And that's really what I think is going to be talked about most in the upcoming weeks. If this continues, is this team doing the right things between matchups? Are they being prepared the right way in practice? Are they doing things game to game that they could carry over? If they're being successful, is that something that is a long-term thing that they could carry over into the next game? That was a big talking point after they blew the doors off of Carolina, and you didn't really see it. And that's the big thing for them, is that doing the little things, carrying it over game to game. And if they could do that, then, they could be prepared. They could do the right things in practice, but we haven't seen that consistently this season.
One problem they have had all year, they're near the bottom of the league in goals allowed right now. Now, obviously, getting Vasilevskiy back should help in that area, but is the defense that's been in front of these goalies been a problem, and has that been fixed after giving up 8 goals to Dallas on Saturday?
Oh, it's been a huge problem all year. And, the big talking point with that was, who do we blame? Is it more so the defensive core? Because, there's been some games where the Lightning have been averaging, giving up about 3 to 4, even sometimes 5. And, Andrei Vasilevskiy not beginning the season with this team, that was obviously one of the big variables with that. But at the same time, Jonas Johansson did a phenomenal job, all things considered, being the starting goaltender for this team. But the defensive core, what really their issue has just been being out of position, standing still, just not being able to follow the puck and close down on defenders. Today in this game against Dallas, Dallas was able to do whatever they wanted. I tweeted during the game that that Dallas could set up a cot and take a nap in front of Vasilevskiy, and Tampa wouldn't be able to do anything about it. And really, that's not far from the truth. And, really, we're going to have to see in the next couple of weeks what this team could do to kind of reverse that fortune, reverse that play, because it's not, as I said on my show, it doesn't get any better, Gil. This team faced off against Colorado this previous week. They faced off against Pittsburgh. Well, guess what? After today's loss to Dallas, they face off against Dallas back home on Monday. And then they got Pittsburgh and a bunch of other tough matchups. So really, until we see otherwise, in my opinion, they haven't fixed the thing.
Is a trade a possibility as far as trying to get a fix on this defense? Or do you think they just look at the players they have and need them to play better?
I think Tampa is just looking within. I think that they're looking at what they have at the NHL level. I think pretty soon, if it doesn't get better, they might be looking in even in their minor league system up in Syracuse. But the Lightning aren't exactly in a situation right now where they can make trades without giving up something very significant. Now, before we hit the record button, I kind of spoke about, Steven Stamkos with the contract situation. That idea was actually kind of floated today on Twitter by a couple of my listeners. Do the Lightning at some point, are they sellers? Are they buyers? And if they're kind of in between, is Stamkos a trade chip? Now that opens up a whole can of worms with the organization if that ends up being a legitimate conversation. But as for defensive, changes, really, it's just about maybe switching up the lines. And that's really unfortunate because really it's everybody top to bottom. So, how many different combinations could you try to change things that's really going to make a significant difference?
Got to ask you about Nikita Kucherov. I mean, just off the charts, great start to this season. What is he doing so well, and can he keep up this amazing pace?
What Kuch has been doing so well this year, really, he's been playing more aggressive. He's been playing, it's kind of shades of 2019 with Kuch. I'm not expecting a 120 plus point season, but I'm not going to rule that out with the certain pace that he's at right now. But at the same time, it's his aggressiveness. He's playing with tons of confidence. And on the other hand, he kind of has to, with the way that this Lightning team has struggled to start the season offensively, and at times have looked really flat throughout the course of games. He's really been the only bright spot. He's been really the only guy that's been able to get things going. And we might see that might be a result of nobody else being able to produce around him as to why he's gotten off to such a hot start. But I mean, individual performance alone, I think it's phenomenal for him. I think it's, when you see what he could do, as long as he stays healthy, he's definitely one of the top players in the league.
No question about it. So here we are. We're past the quarter point of this season. Do you think the Bolts can contend for the playoffs in this division, or do you think this team is in some serious trouble right now, or both?
I think that it changes week to week with this team, actually matchup to matchup. If you would have asked me a week ago after the win against Carolina, Andrei Vasilevskiy's debut, I would have told you this team is definitely going to make the playoffs, definitely make a play for possibly. I think I actually came out on the episode afterwards saying that they were going to challenge for the second spot in the division. That just shows you how high and how low this team could really get from matchup to matchup. But right now, and this might just be recency bias that coming off giving up 8 goals to Dallas, I would say that the chances of them making the playoffs right now are very slim. If they manage to kind of wrangle it together and get to playing well, a wild card spot isn't exactly out of, the realistic possibilities. But at the same time, as well as I do, there's 2 divisions in the East. The Atlantic division is tough, but the teams coming out of the Metropolitan are just as tough, if not more, of a pain in the butt to contend against. So the Lightning have their work cut out for them. And really, the only people that could dictate their future is them. So, we're just going to have to sit and wait. But right now, if I had to pick, I would say it would be no playoffs for the Lightning later on in 2024.
Well, we're going to see. It's a veteran team. They've been there before. Let's see if they can get back on track. Adam, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
We're available wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. You can catch us on our channel on YouTube as well. Go ahead and subscribe to that to keep up with the emotional roller coaster that I will be on for the rest of the season. And you could follow us on social media at LO_Lightning, as well as LockedOn_Lightning on Instagram. So go ahead and do that.
All right, Adam, thanks so much. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? Well, if you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like instant match assessments and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows that over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed knows that when you're growing your own business, you need to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost for application processing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.